joined by Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, who is going to be covering the SEC in college football for the 50th year. And he's also going to call it a career, I think, at the end of it, right? Am I understanding that correctly? I mean, you're going to write a book, but like the day-to-day grind, it will come to a close.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I am saying goodbye to the daily grind. I'm going to do one more year. I'm going to do my last tour of the SEC, and I will turn it into a book, and already have a deal with the University of Georgia Press to print that book and call it Mr. College Football, 50 Years of SEC Memories. And so I'm looking forward. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
You know that just because you're not going to be covering the daily grind, that doesn't mean we're not going to be calling you all the time for great college football takes, because you're a staple. We need a little bit more from you.
Well, thank you. And I've told everybody that I've been on with, say, hey guys, I'm here. I'm not going away. No, this is going to be. I'm walking away from the daily grind of covering the league. But yeah, I've told folks that I give speeches to and all that. Please invite me back. And but yeah, it's going to be special. It really is. Matter of fact, I've already met with. I went to see Nick Saban in Tuscaloosa a couple of weeks ago and got to spend some time with him, and that was a fun day, fun conversation.
Two-part question for you. Do you like the direction the SEC is going, which is a bigger question, the direction of college football, but we can take that in different parts. But I'm just talking about the 16 teams, the 4 power conferences. Like, do you like the direction the SEC is going?
I do. A couple of things. I definitely want to go to 9 games. I think that there'll be some more losses there. I understand. I get all that, but I think it'd be good for the conference. Also good to save what I call secondary rivalries. Matter of fact, my favorite game is Georgia-Auburn, which goes all the way back to 1892, and so I think that, and I'm in favor of the 16-team playoff. I think that it would be tremendous. So yeah, I do like the direction the SEC is going.
But what about the direction of college athletics, but with a focus on football? Yep. With the House settlement, NIL, the $20.2 million, like all these different parts of it that have just. It's different, right? We're talking about your 50-year career covering the league. If we would ask Tony from 30 years ago about this version of college football, he'd be confused.
So what are you talking about? No, listen, we are transitioning into a new era, and it's going to happen. The courts have told us it's going to happen. We got to figure out a way that makes it work, that takes care of the athletes the way they should be, and the courts have made it clear that. There's certain things that schools are going to have to do. And so, yeah, Nick Saban had a good point. He said, look, it is never going back to the way it used to be. What the game that we grew, it'll never go back. He said, but what we're doing now is not sustainable. Okay. There's a sweet spot in there, and it's up to the adults in the room to figure out what it is, which takes care of the athletes and all. And I still think we got a couple more years before this all settles down and we're not have rotating lawsuits all the time.
Do you like the 12-team playoff? Do you like the idea of 16? Do you think we still need conference championship games? Just kind of give me all your thoughts on that kind of bundle of questions.
I'll be very, very surprised for 2026 if we don't go to 16 teams. I think that takes care of all the pretty much issues that you would have. And so I think that's the way to go. And I think, there's so many things that have got to be done. People have got to, I think eventually college sports, particularly college football, is going to have an antitrust exemption, because if you don't have an antitrust exemption every time, take the NIL model where they just get, they get some money, but and they try to restrict when they get ready. This group, the Deloitte, is going to restrict how much the guys can make. First time that gets into a court of law, they're saying, why are you restricting what these guys can make? That is not how free market works. So there's a lot of steps still to be done, but we'll get there. I will get there.
So you're not discouraged by the direction of college football. To you, it's just part of the evolution of sports.
The irony of all of this is that the game on the field, the game that we see every Saturday and watch, the game is better than it's ever been. It is a great game. It always delivers. And so what we've got to do is figure out how to make things work financially, not only for the schools, but for the athletes involved. And we got to get all those folks in a room and come up with a happy medium. But I still think collective bargaining is somewhere in our future. I don't see how you can get it done unless you get an antitrust exemption. If you get an antitrust exemption, then most of these things are solved.
Do you want to see them do something with the portal? Just something to, I don't know, like I struggle with the portal because I think about my children. If they're in the situation where they're unhappy somewhere, they should be able to transfer, right? But then there's the part of me that's like, but are you transferring for NIL reasons all the time? And are you just playing the game? Like I have my issues with it, but I also recognize it is needed.
Well, I talked to a lot of coaches at spring meetings in Destin, and they were all adamant. Kirby Smart was very adamant about we've got to go to one window. And most of the coaches want a one window, goes from January 2nd to January 12th, and that's it. Now you got your team and all that to bring some stability. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to have two windows. Now all of a sudden you got a guy who's been on your, he stays in January, but he sits there and takes part of your cap room, and all of a sudden he leaves in April. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Tony, but what about teams that are still playing from that? If they went with a January window, like just grandfather them, allow them to finish the season if they're in the playoffs?
Exactly. That is a real issue. That is a real issue. But it's a real issue for what? 2 teams, 4 teams, maybe. You can find a way to make that work.
Talking to Tony Barnhart here on TexAgs Live. Tony, let's talk about this upcoming season and just get your thoughts on a couple teams. Our team, Texas A&M, a team that struggled mightily at the end of the season for multiple reasons, injuries to Le'Veon Moss and some defensive issues. Everybody I've brought on the show, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, has felt that Coach Elko is putting them in the right direction. I'm going to frame the question that way, and just what do you think?
Mike Elko is a really good football coach. Okay, some people when Texas A&M was struggling, it was like, oh, they must not be coached very. No. Mike Elko's a really good football coach. He's won every place he's ever been. It just, Texas A&M ran into a string of tough luck and tough injuries and all that, and I think they'll be fine. If Marcel Reed stays healthy and he does what we all think he can do, I think the Aggies will be fine. Now, having said all of that, there are a lot of really good teams in this conference. This year is going to be like last year. I thought last year there were a lot of really good teams in the SEC and no great teams. And I think that's probably the case again. But having said that, there are at least 3 and 4 teams who could win the national championship. So it's going to be a great year. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Who are your 3 or 4 teams that could win it? Georgia, Texas, who else? Alabama?
I think you got to go with Georgia, Texas, Alabama. Keep an eye on LSU. Brian Kelly. I talked to Brian Kelly, as we did a bunch of us who were there, and this could be the best roster that Brian Kelly has ever had. Matter of fact, I think it is. And he said he feels real good about where they are. Now, having said that, got to go to Clemson for the opener. Okay, got to go to Clemson for the opener, and Clemson probably has the best defensive line in all of college football, and they're going to be and a veteran quarterback in Cade Klubnik. So we'll see, but I think those teams could somebody else sneak in for the SEC and contend for the national championship? Yeah, always in this league, but from a sheer talent standpoint, I think it's those teams you just named plus LSU.
3 of those 4 teams you mentioned have first-year starters, right? And there's been a lot of hype on a few of them. What's the likelihood that all 3 are really good? Like, what is the likelihood that Arch is right away, it works? Ty Simpson, it works right away. Gunnar Stockton, right away, it works.
And that is absolutely possible. People, all my Georgia friends are worried about Gunnar Stockton. I said, guys, he's got the locker room. He's got the innate ability. He knows how to play. And so I think he's going to be fine. Florida with DJ Lagway, let's don't forget them. If they get off to a good early start, that's a team, if Lagway stays healthy, that's a team that can make some noise.
When you think about Florida and you think about a team like Oklahoma, they seem to be arrows pointing up, but I can't get past the schedule. Do you does that weigh into when you think about the kind of success they could have?
Absolutely. absolutely. Florida's schedule is just ridiculous. It really is. Now, you've got a quarterback who can make all the plays, but yeah, you cannot ignore that schedule. That's just but credit to Coach Napier. They against that same schedule last year with the roles reversed, they had a very, very good finish, and that's got to be encouraging. But Lagway's got to stay healthy.
Talking to Tony Barnhart here on TexAgs Live. Tony, what about Tennessee? We understand the quarterback situation with Aguilar. I know the system that Heupel has, and it seems to always work. But what do you think about them this year?
Well, Tennessee is a contender. If we're talking about Tennessee, it's going to be not because of the offense; it's going to be because of the defense. Tennessee is going to be really good on defense. They got Tim Banks to return as their OC. He could have gone anywhere, and so he is going to be back. And so Aguilar, the transfer, is going to end up being the quarterback when all is said and done. Can he carry the team for 12, 13 games? We'll see. But I don't know which way Tennessee's going to. That's why I didn't have Tennessee in that grouping of teams that you and I just talked about. There's just so much we don't know.
Talking to Tony Barnhart here on TexAgs Live. Tony, Ole Miss is a team that I just feel like they're going to be good. Not the good that we thought they were going to be last year, but maybe that same level, because I have Lane Kiffin's a coach that I think from an offensive standpoint, there's no denying how good he is. Where do you see Ole Miss this year?
Lane Kiffin is one of the best play callers of our generation. He absolutely is. Now, his plays look a lot better when Jackson Dart's throwing the ball, and I think that is an issue. I think Ole Miss will be there. They've got the talent level now where they should be a pretty consistent team. But how do the quarterbacks work out? Well, because Lane Kiffin's offense is so dependent on not having a good quarterback, but really an elite quarterback. And can the guys in that quarterback room give him that elite play that he needs?
Close out with a SEC versus Big Ten question. The SEC's not won the championship the last couple of years, but every other sport, they're taking care of business like they normally do. They're right there. Do you think this year, for 25, the SEC's got a better chance or the Big Ten?
I think the SEC has a better chance. And I know, by the way, it did not go unnoticed in Destin by the coaches that the Big Ten has won the last two national championships. Okay, they pointed that they went out of their way to point that out. Again, I think the SEC has more quality teams than the Big Ten. The Big Ten it's top heavy. It's been top heavy for a while, but the SEC goes 5, 6, 7 teams deep of really, really quality teams.
Tony, I can't wait to see you in Atlanta here in a couple of weeks, my friend. Thanks for making a few minutes for us, and best of luck, and I can't wait to read the book.
All right. Thanks so much. See you in Atlanta.
See you, man.
Take care.
Tony Barnhart on TexAgs Live.